Welcome to Let's Stats, where we cover pretty much whatever we want. And right now we're going through a bunch of vampire movies, starting with the first three Nosferatus by Murnau, Herzog, and Eggers. And we just watched 1979's Werner Herzog's Nosferatu, the Vampire. So what did you guys think of it?
I like Nosferatu more.
Yeah, that's gonna be the version I direct.
I can't wait. I'm looking forward.
I just gotta find 20,000 rats.
You'll need even more rats. I don't even
Rats.
think that Eggers had this many rats.
He didn't actually. He only had 5,000, whereas Herzog had 10,000 apparently.
Jesus.
10,000 rats.
10,000 rats.
And I'm assuming that they were all rescued from laboratories and then sent to happy little rat havens.
Yep, that's what I choose to believe.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Apparently, Herzog did say that they had a very proficient and humane way of controlling the rats within the city, because the place it was filmed, it's called Delft. Delft is a city in the Netherlands, and they actually just recently in the 70s had a massive rat problem and were able to sort of quell it before Herzog showed up with 10,000 rats. So the council was kind of upset with him. They're like, well, we just got over this. So he was like, okay, I guarantee we won't lose one single rat. And according to him, they didn't, but you never know. There probably is a couple white rats that have escaped into Delft.
I would imagine, I don't know how you wrangle that many rats. And
Yeah.
you would see some in the far distance running just free in the city.
Yeah.
Well, and like, were they locally sourced rats, or were they like was he traveling with an entourage of like thousands of rats?
Yeah, it seems like he pulled a Nosferatu and brought his own rats to the city.
Oh my god.
Art imitates art.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really interesting movie, especially like how it kind of set off a very like stark opening. I have a feeling that maybe the version we watched was missing the title cards because it didn't also show us the credits too, so it kind of just cut. But yeah, like shows us these mummies, which I looked up it's a museum in Mexico that has all these mummified remains from a cholera outbreak, and kind of sets this very dreadful, eerie tone, but then kind of switches right to this sort of happy, cheerful, but still sort of strange world that we find Harker in as he's set off to Transylvania pretty much right away. All this nice whimsical music, but then like throughout the movie, like pretty much after he becomes vampirized and is stuck in Transylvania, there isn't really much of a score until the very end, which is then like very somber and sad.
That's true. It was so jarring going from the opening credits to the start of the story. I
Mm-hmm.
really want to know more about the mummies. That was terrifying. That was so scary.
Yeah, I really wonder why they decided to add them, because I kind of looked into it, and it's this place, I hope I don't butcher this, it's called Guanajuato, and yeah, it was like this kind of accident. A lot of the more wealthy people in town were being embalmed and mummified, and I forget the correct word. It's not desiccation, but a similar word that is in the process of mummifying people, and they accidentally started mummifying a bunch of essentially poor people, and then left them in this catacomb to then be shown on display in this museum that's in the city.
Wow. I want to know if he got permission to
Yeah,
film that.
it almost feels like he didn't, especially the way it's shot. Like it's under his coat pocket,
Yeah. And I feel like he did so much with so little. I'm sure the budget was quite low for this, but he really was able to get some really surreal shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially with like the bats. So go ahead.
I think aesthetically it did a really good job of like hitting the like hauntingly beautiful kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, it felt like a dream, especially with a lot of the shots of Dracula especially in the city. Like it didn't feel like he was existing in reality.
It didn't. There was something very dreamy about this Nosferatu.
Yeah, especially like the performance by Mina with the actress is Isabella Adjani. This very, yeah, like haunting and ethereal sort of feeling that she gave the role was quite fitting.
And I really see Herzog feeling so inspired by the original.
Yeah. Yeah, like a lot of like very like shot for shot scenes. Like we were saying when we were watching it, when Mina's on the beach there surrounded by the graves. It was like felt like it was right from the Murnau version. It was very excellent.
Yeah, it definitely felt like an evolution of
Mm-hmm.
the story.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because there was definitely, clearly some things added, especially that we now have color and sound, but they still did a really good job of kind of harkening back to this sort of German expressionism of the 1920s, where you don't have to have a lot of sound to convey this sort of feeling of dread. Like when Nosferatu enters Mina's room and it's all just shadow work. You can like see the door close, but he's still entered the room and creeping up to her or just casting a shadow on their house. Like it was very well shot.
Mm-hmm. And we got our emo Dracula in this one.
We really did. He was pining, he was yearning, but
He really
also
was.
kind of, it's interesting. He definitely felt like a very cursed presence, and he was aware of that. Like he was trapped in
Yeah,
this state.
that's a good way of putting it. Because yeah, especially in like the more modern tellings of Dracula, or even in the original, like it just came across as sort of haunting, but not like loathsome in his own existence. Where he's like, it sucks being alive, and like says it multiple times through the movies. Like I don't want to be immortal.
Yeah, he does feel very trapped in this undead state. And then he's coming into the city and causing pandemonium. Whereas before it was very idyllic. It was interesting because the his name was Thomas. Was it Thomas in the movie?
I
Or am
think
I
it's
thinking of the original?
I think the original with Orlok is Thomas, and this one's Jonathan Harker. This is
Jonathan Harker. Right. He's complaining about the city and wanting to get away, which was a different tone, I feel like, even in the original. I don't know.
that's
At
true.
least I didn't see him looking at this as this grand adventure to get away from the status quo.
No, yeah, in the first film, it was kind of just he was just doing his job, and he was pretty like happy-go-lucky and whimsical about the whole thing, and he didn't feel like he was pining for a life outside of Vismar. But it's kind of also interesting that we're talking about that because, as we can see, Herzog actually used the original names for Bram Stoker's Dracula instead of the Nosferatu ones, and that's changed the names to avoid copyright because the Murnau Foundation that owned the right to 1922's Nosferatu attempted to charge Herzog for the copyright, and then he changed it back to the original of Dracula, which became public domain in the 60s to skirt the Nosferatu copyright.
Oh my god. That's
Wow.
so quick.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's very funny. Herzog himself said that he was a thief without loot to the Murnau Institute, and they still denied him with paying copyright.
What a funny mirror to what happened with Nosferatu and Bram Stoker's
Right?
estate.
Yes. When I was listening to this interview with Herzog, I was like, that is quite the funny coincidence.
Yeah, we've come full circle.
Yeah, and I think to that, I guess in Eggers he uses the original names from Murnau's version. I would assume that's also because Murnau's version is now public domain, so didn't have any issues getting it.
Yeah.
No issue there.
That's so
Yeah,
funny.
they're just honoring tradition at this point.
The
Yeah.
honoring the original Dracula knockoff.
Yeah, exactly. In 30 years, they'll get another remake, and it'll have all the Dracula names.
Yeah.
I love it. Incredible.
I did find it really interesting how he ended it. It was so different.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that because I was expecting after Dracula perished that the movie would end like it did in the other interpretations of Nosferatu, but yeah, I mean this sort of I guess twist ending.
Yeah, it really had very little to do with her, really, and about him becoming this new entity, I guess.
Yeah, becoming the next Dracula, which I guess kind of it makes sense with the lore they used in the film, where he is essentially the spawn of Belial, who's this, I believe the Prince of Hell, or some fantastical title.
A demon.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or a
but
devil.
also interesting because Nosferatu mentions when he's at his castle that he's been a lord there for centuries, but he's also was created by a demon. So it's hard to tell that if is he the original, or is he someone that was also bit and then turned into this ghoul.
Right. Yes. How old? How long ago was the original vampire?
It's a good question.
What generation vampire are you?
And I know that I had never seen this before, but I had heard a lot about the drama behind the scenes with, what is it, Kinski
Yeah.
and Herzog, and really just everyone on set.
Yeah, Klaus Kinski, he had made, I think it was 7 films with Herzog, and he's well renowned as a fantastic actor. But yeah, very, very mean and horrible person, would just like verbally and physically abuse the cast and the crew of pretty much every film he worked on. One of the first ones he worked on with Herzog is called The Guare, The Wrath of God, and it follows this Spanish conquistador in the jungle of South America. And yeah, apparently Kinski didn't need a whole lot of convincing to become this awful character for the film, and carried that through his entire life.
Well, that's always.
It's yeah, interesting these complicated relationships some directors have with their favorite actors, even when they're not the most savory people, I guess you could say.
No, yeah.
It is interesting. It seems like Herzog's very fascinated with personalities like that too.
Mm-hmm. He has a magnetism towards antisocial personalities.
Yeah.
I also, yeah, I was thinking this too. I really like how they did the degradation of the city itself, where, when you first see it, it's just this quaint little place, but then like, upon the arrival of Nosferatu, you have essentially this plague started, the town council like panicking, making sure everyone gets home. The next we see of them, they're all in coffins being brought out to town center. And then after that, it's sort of this hellish interpretation of the plague, and everyone has kind of lost their minds. They're all having their last supper, surrounded by farm animals, and rats are all around their feet, dancing with goats on tables. So it's
Yeah.
like kind of
Right.
insanity that Nosferatu brought to the city.
And echoing what Lucy said about, are we all just fated to wake up in straitjackets one day?
Mm-hmm.
It really was just about, I feel like he was more fascinated in society breaking down, and Nosferatu was just sort of the person that made it happen.
Yeah, because that's kind of, it feels like a good evolution of what the sort of main theming of Nosferatu in the first film was, where there was essentially no plague. It was just Nosferatu causing this chaos through his incessant bloodlust, but it's a little the lines are a little more blurred in this one, where it's hard to tell if it's just Nosferatu or if it's sort of this entity that he brings with him, right?
Right. And then everyone just sort of becomes mad with the plague. I loved that scene in the town square with all the rats and the banquet table.
Yes.
Yeah, it
It
really
was
sold the feeling of
incredible.
chaos well.
Yeah.
I do wish that Renfield had more of a similar role as he did in the first Nosferatu, where he was, getting chased around and doing this sort of Benny Hill action. But he was a really fun character. Added a lot of levity to
Yeah.
the story, which was necessary. Like there's definitely some comedic elements that Renfield brought, but the rest of the film was very depressing. It's especially from how we said, like, Dracula's position of not essentially wanting to do what he's doing, and almost like compelled through his nature.
Right. It is very somber.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that town square scene would have been perfect for Renfield to be causing some sort of chaos.
Yeah, just frolicking or doing his scampering.
Right.
And also interesting that he didn't kill the guard of his cell. He just tossed him in there. So I think
That's
in every other
true.
interpretation, he's getting a little bloody.
There was a shocking, there was not a lot of blood in this. I was shocked.
Yeah, I think the most blood we saw was when Van Helsing staked Dracula, and you see this sort of very red paint blood. But yeah, other than that, it was
Right.
just like very small marks on the neck, like they practically didn't have blood, like they could have been interpreted as mosquito bites.
It was definitely less of a bite and more of like a puncture, and and he was like, for lack of a better word, just sucking on her neck,
Yeah.
like kind of like a baby bottle.
Yeah, that final scene was quite something to watch. Like, I think they got a little too into it, and there's like, all right, we're just gonna roll with whatever happens, and yeah, just kind of went regress to baby.
Yeah, yeah.
It's I mean, I don't recall, but I don't remember the silent film having the Murnau version having a whole lot of blood, but
No,
it would
but
be
that
kind
was
of hard to
also
tell.
That is true.
like it wasn't really an era for much gore back in the 20s. So it maybe just harkens back to that, and especially nowadays we are much more used to seeing a lot more gore in our films.
That's true.
That is very
True. I feel like the mummies, though, were so jarring and shocking to see. I was
Yeah.
expecting Herzog to be a little more liberal with the blood, but but he really was staying true to the original in so many ways, just visually.
Yeah, it was really cool to see
And
the
the Van
contrast.
Helsing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all I was gonna say. Go ahead.
Um, the Van Helsing character was very different in this too. Um, I guess in my memory, I'm thinking more so about the recent Nosferatu, but he very much just didn't listen to me or to Lucy,
Yeah.
and was kind of like, "You're," and then when it was too late, he went, "Whoops, should have listened to her."
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like a skeptic throughout, and then sort of cast as like, this this villain who murdered somebody, because they still saw the count as a man. Whereas in like, yeah, the Coppola version, Eggers, Van Helsing is like this very fantastical character who already like believes in vampires and is there to hunt vampires, or
Right.
at least make everyone believe in what's happening. And yeah,
Very
like,
eccentric.
yeah, very eccentric. And he was in this one very like downplayed, just kind of this skeptical doctor. Kind of didn't really do anything until it was too late, and then got in the middle of this bickering argument between the town crier and another town official as how to deal with murderers in the state where there essentially is no authority anymore.
Right. And then the sweeping of the little salt circle I thought was just so funny.
Yeah, it was really well done. Yeah, such an
There's
interesting
dust in
thing to do.
here. And then he does a little hop over it. It
Yeah.
was very cute.
Hee hee hee. I have
He was
tricked you.
already in character. He was the new
Yeah.
Nosferatu. He's like, I'm assuming the role. Thank you. I'm gonna go run through the town square at night in my heels
Yes.
with my nails.
Ugh. Great costuming too, like especially with Nosferatu. I really like how it's very similar to the original, but had this more, I guess, like daunting and ghoulish appearance, and you could
I
like
really
see it through.
liked it.
Yeah, like it was just so well done, and like Kinski's sort of facial expressions throughout just really kind of drove home that the fact that Nosferatu wasn't happy with life and wanted it to end, and it then kind of just infatuated with Mrs. Harker.
Yeah, they were such a pair to see on screen next to each other because they
Oh
said
yeah.
so much without saying anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Their
great face acting.
facial acting was out of this world.
Yeah, the main female actor, her name is Isabel. She was also in The Conjuring, which was apparently Lily Rose Lily Rose Depp's main inspiration for her character when she was in Nosferatu, which I found interesting that it wasn't from Nosferatu, but it was instead from Possession.
I totally see that now. That's an amazing connection because I mean, Lily Rose Depp has to do her role is so physical.
Mm-hmm.
I can totally see. I never even thought about comparing it to Possession, but that makes sense. It's really interesting how all of these movies are just sort of woven and overlapping their histories, their references.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, especially with the vampire genre. Like in film, it kind of goes without saying, but like there you can really see the stepping stones each movie takes within itself and sort of contributes to the future as well. And actually, I feel like I like Lily Rose Depp's performance a little more now, because before when I first watched it, I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if this is too intense, but yeah, especially after hearing she based it off of Possession and seeing Isabel's, I was like, yeah, she did a really good job.
That's pretty spot
Absolutely.
on.
And that's I love that Possession's getting its time now.
Yeah.
There was another movie that I saw recently. Oh, it was in the first Omen. They did a little homage to Possession in that movie as well.
I
guess that
actually
makes sense.
don't think I've seen Possession.
We should watch it. It's really good.
Very disturbing, very good.
Oh, good.
She's incredible in it. She's terrifying.
Oh, beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, Sam Neill's in it as well.
Right up my alley.
I guess it makes sense too, because a lot of the directors around now, and people would have been watching movies in like the 90s, early 2000s, and probably having that influence from their parents, like making them watch Possession. Like when I was a kid, my dad was like, "Oh, you gotta watch Alien, gotta watch The Thing. Those are the best movies out there." And now that's like kind of the foundation of my my film enjoyment is movies like that.
That's so true.
Oh yeah. Well, and then beyond that, like so many of these things like originate back to like ancient folklore and things like that.
Yeah, it's just the history of humanity keeps on ticking through vampires.
Yeah. Yeah, the very notion of what a vampire is seems to like span across quite a variety. Actually, I should do a little research on that and actually talk about that in one of the episodes while we're doing this.
I would love to hear that.
It's pretty cool because there's definitely you see this sort of crossover from what ancient sort of vampires of of Archaea were, and there's lots of different types, especially like there's ones in Eastern Europe and Persia. There's ones in Asia as well, and they all have similarities, but yeah, especially around like Bram Stoker's era and then Nosferatu, they sort of evolved into what we see them as now. But then Eggers kind of also brought back a lot of those sort of ghoulish, more like bestial aspects through Skarsgård.
Yeah, sort of married the two. I would feel. I mean, I'm interested to revisit it, especially after watching these two versions. But I feel like this version definitely brought more sexuality to Nosferatu and Lucy.
Yeah, where the original felt kind of rigid and just showing her as this sort of dainty woman. They really sort of pushed it that like she's a woman and she has these feelings, like especially the final scene with Dracula was much more intimate than I thought it was going to be.
It really was. It did kind of feel like, oh, we're interrupting something.
Yeah.
At one point.
Should we be in here?
I'm actually just thinking back to like the whole like noticing that haven't seen so far a lot of blood in any of the Nosferatu movies. It kind of like almost is an echo of the sort of vampire vibe of like it's always sort of this dance around direct sexuality. Like, there's usually not like a big sex scene. It's like, oh, she's like getting her neck bitten, which is like, not necessarily overtly like sexual if he's just having a snack.
Yeah, so wait till you see Coppola's version. That definitely ramps it up.
Oh yeah.
Can you get some blood in that one?
Blood.
Have you seen it?
I have not. No.
Oh, you are in for a treat.
Yeah, that's gonna be a fun one to cover for sure.
It's a really fun one.
Oh, I'm excited. I must say though, that the costuming in this one, in terms of like historical accuracy, made the Eggers version look like completely flawless.
Yeah, it's like they like they went to Party City.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there were some coats that were like far too small, and you could see the shirt bunching out of the bottom of it.
There was one dress that she was wearing that I was like, that is like just a proto 90s mom dress. Like, what?
Absolutely. Or just I mean, there was this sort of like medieval Shakespearean or like almost like theatrical fashion trend.
Yeah.
The medieval like 70s look was a thing.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the one lady
like
that ushers her in with like the red velvet dress with the slitted
Yeah,
pants. I was like,
it felt it was cool, but it felt like it was from something completely different. Like maybe she was in some sort of play and she
yeah,
just
just
got
happened to
out of
walk by.
rehearsal.
it's just her
Yeah,
Ren Fair outfit.
that was her Ren Fair. It was a little Ren Fair, but at the same time, the locations and some of the shots were so amazing.
Yeah, yeah, you can really tell they like, especially when they were not in Delft, they really soaked in as much of the nature as they could. And yes,
Yeah,
funnily enough, it's filmed in a similar location to Murnau's. They're both filmed in the Czech Republic and in Slovakia.
oh no, it felt very unfiltered.
Hmm.
Um, just the way he shot it felt really unfiltered, almost as if he had like 3 hours and he's like, we gotta get it done right now,
Yeah.
right now. Let's go.
I kind of hope that that is the case. That was the case. He's just like one of those people who gets like a creative burst and has to act on it in the moment.
Right. Like we only have so much daylight. The wind is perfect. The way it's moving the trees, we gotta get it right now. The boat
Yeah.
hitting the canal,
Oh
the
God.
side of the canal. Oh my God.
It's like, please no.
But they're like really doing that though.
Yeah. It really, and yeah, there's the like tree it ran into and it started breaking branches. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's raw, you know?
You can't do that too many times.
No. Yeah, there's a lot
Well,
of
that's
like a lot of
usually
creative. Go ahead.
stuff that they edit out.
Yeah, it's typically
Right.
things in modernity that they would see as like, imperfections that distract from the film, whereas like that's realistic. Like, a plague boat with no real captain rolling into town wouldn't avoid a tree.
Right. Right. And I don't know. I guess maybe it's just his eye also as a documentarian, but there was I don't know. It felt almost not as stylized. It felt less stylized than the original and the most recent.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, it has a sort of flat and raw tone to it. And then there's yeah, a little stylization that really stood out with like, the shadows and these
The
sort of
shadows,
slow
right?
motion bats flying, and like the very end when Jonathan slash the new Dracula is riding off on these this sand. It looks like it's near the beach, but it could be anywhere. And these winds blowing the small amount of sand towards, and these massive clouds that look like they've been kind of superpositioned in are blowing in the distance. It was really interesting because yeah, like you said, most of the film was this sort of flat, sort of almost documentarian feeling to it.
Yeah, like he's leaving a lot of room for improvisation in the landscape. Whereas I feel like Eggers is like meticulously, painstakingly making sure everything is perfect and how
Yeah,
he wants it to look. I feel like Herzog's like the boat ran into the tree, that's perfect.
yeah,
That's all we need.
exactly.
He's not planning for it. He's just like, "Oh, that's great. I love that."
He actually just didn't have anyone driving the boat. He actually just let the rats drive the boat. That's what
The
Yeah.
happened.
rats the rats were, the captain of the ship at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
All what was it? How about 10,000 of them?
10,000 rats apparently.
He was like,
Wow.
it
That's
is
so
in their
many.
tiny little hands now.
Oh.
Ugh.
Here you go, rats. Oh, maybe that's what happened in the end with all the rats. They just like gave them the boat and were like, "Be free," and the rats sailed out,
I like that interpretation.
headed out to sort of area around Somalia. Probably some good pirate activities to do around there. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see a group of rat pirates taking over segments of the New World.
Yeah, the two words together, rat pirate, just like feels like a natural combination.
Yeah.
Like it's like cellar door, but for like scabies.
Pirate rat. It does have the
Exactly.
same sort of mouthfeel as cellar door.
Rat pirate. No, it's more like zesty.
Zesty's the right word. Yeah.
I love it. I'm excited. Which one's the next one? Either way, I haven't seen it. So
Well, so we could go right to Eggers, which is like kind of more the chronologically Nosferatu, but then there's like the one with Malkovich, which is sort of this behind the scenes in making the first one. So we could watch that one next, or we could watch Eggers and then watch the sort of making of Nosferatu. It's up to you guys.
oh goodness.
Exciting.
Yeah. Actually, at this point, I'm excited to see the Eggers version again.
Yeah, I think we should rewatch that one next, and then we kind of have a lot of this context from watching the first two, and then it'll be like a nice little treat to watch this sort of making of the first one with who else is in it? It's Malkovich. Shadow the Vampire, that's what it's called. Willem
Is
Dafoe,
it
yeah.
Willem? Yeah,
Yeah.
Willem's in it.
Yeah, Malkovich plays Murnau, and Dafoe plays Shrek, who played Nosferatu.
Really interesting. Again, just how all these versions reference each other.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, there's so many little like intertwining threads of I don't know, just commonality connecting them all. Like
Absolutely. They are very much woven together.
It's fascinating. I love it. I love watching people make art and then make derivative art of that art and then do that again and again and again.
Yeah, especially when it's like it doesn't feel like, how we see like Blumhouse their vision, where it's just this sort of blatant and sort
Yeah.
of cash grab. Like it's clearly done out of the love for the material itself.
Right. It's not like Disney remaking their own
Oh
movies
God.
or Tim Burton getting stuck in like a remake loop as well. Like you can tell when there's no passion there, and it's just so clear that everyone who worked on all these, it just feels like everyone who worked on these movies is very much a little bit obsessed
Yeah.
with the story or the history or what came before.
Yeah. It's you have to be a little. It's kind of like how there's like a certain even prior to Heath Ledger, like a certain sort of attitude attached to like people who have played the Joker throughout all the different roles.
Oh, that's a good way of putting
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, like with certain, it's interesting to see how like with certain properties, there's little things like that that are they'll just sort of develop like I guess this cult following and obsession in fans that makes them want to like become a part of the story in whatever way they can.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Which I mean, I would be happy. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if I want to become a part of the story. I'll hang out. I'll hang out with the rats, but it seems like things kind of go pretty bad for almost everyone involved.
Be at the banquet table with the rat.
Yeah, I volunteered to be the rat handler.
I volunteer to be a rat.
Perfect. Now it's starting to feel like we're gonna wind up in Nope. Like you're like the horse, and I'm like the guy who's like trains the horse. That is one of those movies that I've like. I don't think I've seen it all the way through at all. I've just seen. I've seen the whole movie, but it's always in like weird segments.
That's funny.
It's funny. That's me with There Will Be Blood. I've never actually
Oh.
sat down and watched it. I've only seen bits and pieces. And it's kind of become a little inside joke where I'm like, I can't just sit down and watch it all.
No.
It has to exist in the way that I've seen it sporadically.
Just gotta watch it through a TikTok compilation of like 1 out of 64.
Yeah, it's like I've never seen the Titanic, and I just hit a certain point in my teen years where I realized that I could like use that to win at like Never Have I Ever games. And
Oh, that's a good
now I
one.
can't see it because then I won't be able to win the game.
I want to have this card in my deck.
Yeah.
Funny.
I'm kind of surprised that hasn't been remade. I feel like
Yeah, actually.
maybe James Cameron's like, absolutely not.
No, he's sitting on the boat of the Titanic saying, "Get away!" Shoot! Spraying everyone with water comes close.
Only I can make movies about water.
I mean, there have been some like good there have been some good like spooky boat, or not even just spooky boat, but yeah, like I don't know, Titanic adjacent, maybe Titanic inspired.
That is true. The disaster movie. I mean, this movie had a spooky boat in it. It was really eerie how he tied himself to the helm.
Yeah.
That was very scary. It's just like understated sort of horror.
Yeah, he kind of knew his lot. He was like, well, I have to keep manning this, and I'm going to die anyways. So, and yeah, they're like, desperate, and like the wrapping wasn't done right perfectly, and there wasn't really any fancy knots. It was just sort of like an act of desperation.
Right. And then then when it sailed into the canal, they were all like, "Oh, well, we should take a look at this." And everyone in their top hats. Untie him.
Well, it's probably nothing. Or
Probably
God,
nothing. There's a lot of rats though. Huh, interesting.
just reminded me when they're leaving Transylvania and they're like, "What's in these coffins? Oh, it's dirt. Let's make sure." And then the guy just sticks his foot in there and gets bitten by a rat. Like, what are you doing?
Get your bare feet on her.
So had a foot thing. He's like, I have to show my feet on film. I have to.
No,
Why was he not wearing shoes? Who is? I feel like if you're on a ship, you're definitely wearing shoes.
Yeah. Just took him off to get his puppies in that Transylvanian soil. Oh, I'll know if this is foreign soil.
The foot shot was just a preemptive Tarantino homage.
Maybe Tarantino
yeah, Tarantino's
actually.
Yeah, he's actually referencing Nosferatu and all this.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I'm sticking with that from now on. Yeah, whenever you see a foot in a Tarantino film, he's thinking about vampires for sure.
No, it's not a fetish. It's artistic interpretation. You don't understand.
I'm just checking these rats. I'm inspecting this dirt. Leave me be.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Hey, Monday. I think we covered it all. I guess I kind of jumped the gun there. Dad, did you have any other cool factoids?
No, I think we covered everything I got in my homework. I kind of went down like a Herzog rabbit hole. I'm like, well, none of this really has to do with the film, but it's cool.
But I got
He's so interesting.
He really is. Yeah, and he like also like the Dracula has this weird cult following. Like I was watching this pretty cool interview, and like there's just like it was like watching like stand up. Like everyone was just laughing at everything he says. I'm like, I don't even know if that was funny. Like oh, Werner Herzog. I'm like, I think he's just telling the story, guys.
Does he? I must confess, I've never like heard him speak. Does he have a German accent?
Oh, Dad, he has the perfect German accent.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's why they're laughing.
Well, he has like a really dry wit, so like he has lots of
Well,
he has lots of
okay,
jokes,
so he's
but
a German.
yeah, and like Yeah, because he just plays out his jokes like completely straight faced, and then he'll kind of like look and like do like a little cheeky smirk. You're like, oh, you're making a little joke, aren't you?
Yeah, I remember a series of videos. They're probably quite old, but it was someone doing a Herzog voice, but narrating this very sad tale about Where's Waldo.
Yes,
Just
Valdol.
describing Where's Waldo. Yeah,
Is Waldo?
it's very good.
I won't find him.
Yeah, Dad, you should
Yeah.
watch some of his
Or does he want
documentaries.
to be found?
Waldo has chosen to be alone.
That's exactly it.
Whoops. Yet again, I forgot to record plugs and shoutouts for our guests and ourselves. But please go check out MayDreaming on Twitch and myself on Twitch as well on your respective social media platforms, mostly Blue Sky. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. We'll hear ya on the next episode.